Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Planning and Development Committee of April the 9th. There are some changes to the agenda, but just before we get to that, I would like to remind everybody if you could put your cellular devices on an inaudible mode so as not to disturb the meeting this evening. All members of committee are in attendance with the exception of Councillor Dillon, Councillor Miles. They may be joining us a little bit later. There are some changes to the agenda before we get started. Number 8.1, the minutes of the Cycling Advisory Committee from March the 15th have been handed out and they're circulated before you. The summary that the clerk's office has provided adds item 5.2, a delegation from Chris Baynar, but I'm going to suggest that rather than adding him under delegations, we simply let him be the first speaker this evening on 4.8 for the statutory public meeting on that item. There are 6 items of correspondence related to 4.8, and I guess we'll number them 13(1)A through to F. The first is from Chris Baynar, the second is from Doug Bryden, the third Lou Batista, fourth Maeve Tynan, fifth Ray Clark, and the final one Wendong Luo. There is an added correspondence item related to the public meeting 4.1. It's from Christopher J. Tanzola, Overland LLP. It's on the city-initiated official plan amendment to add comprehensive tertiary plans to all wards in Brampton. There is another added correspondence item on item 4.5 on Calgore Developments. It too is from Christopher J. Tanzola, Overland LLP. On item 7.1, we have a piece of correspondence from Richard Domes, Gagnon Walker Domes. On item 5.1, which is delegations, we've had a request to delegate from the applicant, Colin Chung, from Glenn Schnarr and Associates. And on item 7.1, there is a clerical correction that was made to the agenda that is on the cover page with relationship to the correct file number for this. Other than that, the content of the report remains the same. Councillor Fortini, I'm going to assume you're speaking on the consent. I'll wait till we get there. Are there?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out under item 4 that you read out in terms of changes, correspondence regarding 4.5 Calgore Developments from J. Tanzola Overland. There's also his same correspondence also relates to item 7.3, which is item 5.1, so it'll be received with that as well.
Great, thank you. Seeing no other changes to the agenda, would someone like to move approval? Councillor Willens, all those in favor? That's carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. Under the consent agenda, Councillor Fortini.
So, thank you through the chair. I'd like to add just point consent 7.2, please.
7.2?
Yes.
We spoke earlier about 7.3. You're only adding 7.2?
7.3, sorry.
And 7.3.
7.3.
Is there any objection from members of council on those two items? Councillor Paleshi? Sorry?
Madam Chair, 7.3 also relates to delegation item 5.1, where there'll be possible delegations, so we should.
Okay, so we'll leave that one.
We'll leave that one there.
That's 7.3?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Paleshi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just ask for us to separate then 7.2, as I cannot support that. I can support the 7.2, the item, but being consent is supposed to be non-controversial. There was some controversy in the beginning of this on that file, so I would request that we do not add it into consent.
Okay. So if there's a question on the item, then Councillor Fortini, it wouldn't be appropriate to put it in consent. So the only item in consent is item 8.1. Someone like to move consent? Councillor Bowman, all those in favor? That's carried. For members of the public in attendance this evening, that now moves us to the statutory public meeting reports. And you're going to have to be really kind to me tonight, because this is the first night for the Planning and Development Committee under the Bill 139 amendments. So the Clerk's Department have given me a script that I'm going to have to follow. It's a little bit different for those who attend the Planning Committee on a regular basis. So parts of it are the same, but how we deal with each public meeting will be slightly different. So this is a public meeting of the Planning and Development Committee held in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act of Ontario. The proposals heard at this public meeting are a result of applications made to the city under the Planning Act. These are not proposals of the City of Brampton unless they are specifically identified as city-initiated proposals. This evening we do have one city-initiated proposal, item 4.1, regarding a city-initiated official plan amendment to add tertiary plans policies to the official plan. The intent of this public meeting is to hear submissions from the applicant and the public regarding these proposals. Members of the committee may ask questions of clarification only, but will not engage in debate on each proposal at this time. Committee consideration of the proposals will occur at a future meeting when planning staff bring forward the final recommendation report on each proposal. The city also has posted to its website, www.brampton.ca, supporting information and documentation for each current development application for public review and reference. And we'll now proceed to consider each item on this evening's statutory public meeting agenda. So our first item is item 4.1. It is the report from Planner Manseltov, Policy Planner, Planning and Development Services, dated March the 16th, re the city-initiated official plan amendment to add comprehensive tertiary plan policies in all wards. Is anyone here this evening who wishes to hear a submission from the applicant and presentation from city staff regarding this proposal? And then I would ask you to come forward and provide public input on this item. So is anybody here this evening who wishes to come forward and make comments on item 4.1, the city-initiated amendment? I don't see any hands in the air. So let the record show that no one attending this statutory public meeting requested an applicant submission, staff presentation, or requested to speak on this matter. Does the applicant wish to make a submission to committee on the proposal?
It's city initiated, and if council so desires, we can hold off on the presentation if you're comfortable with the material.
Thank you. So let the record show that the applicant has denied the opportunity to make a submission to committee on this matter. Does any member of committee have questions of city staff for clarification only regarding this proposal? Seeing none, then we will have this item considered dealt with. Do I have to? Okay, I'll accept a motion at this time to adopt the staff recommendations. Councillor Miles, all those in favor? That's carried. So the statutory public meeting for this has been adjourned. And we will now proceed with item 4.2. Is anyone here this evening who wishes to hear a submission from the applicant and presentation from city staff regarding this proposal? So item 4.2 is the report from Stephen Dykstra, Development Planner. It's an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit highway commercial and office use Gagnon Walker Domes Limited on behalf of Harkit Kangura, 9416 Highway 50 in Ward 10. You're here for that item this evening? Okay. I will stand that down and we'll come back to it once we go through all of the, and there's 8 this evening, okay? But you'll be the first one back. So is on item 4.2, a draft plan of subdivision and application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit townhouse, single-detached, semi-detached, medium-high density, service commercial, school, park, open space, natural heritage, and stormwater management purposes, Malone Given Parsons Limited, Great Gulf Group of Companies, parts of Lot 5 and 6, Concession 5, north and south sides of Emmilton Road, east of Heritage Road, Ward 6. Is anybody in attendance for this item this evening and wish to see a presentation? Tony? Okay. We'll come back to that item. On item 4.4, it's an application to amend the zoning bylaw from Neil Grady and the draft plan of subdivision to permit single detached open space and environmental purposes, KLM Planning Partners 2511362, Ontario Incorporated, part of Lot 5, Concession 5, 27 Cliffside Drive, south of Emmilton Road and west of Mississauga Road, Ward 6. Is anybody in attendance for that? Thank you. On item 4.5, from Kevin Freeman, Development Planner, application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision to permit 100 stacked townhome dwelling units, KLM Planning Partners, Cal Gore Developments, 9159 Goreway Drive, north of Queen Street, east on the east side of Goreway Drive, Ward 8. Is anybody in attendance for that item this evening and wishes to speak? Seeing none, let the record show that no one attending this statutory public meeting requested an applicant submission, staff presentation, or request to speak on this matter. I'll now give the applicant an opportunity to signal whether or not they wish to make a presentation this evening. There's KLM, I'm looking for you. Up there. You don't wish to make a presentation? Are there any questions from members of council of clarification on this item? Seeing none, then we will adjourn that item for this evening. So motion to approve the staff report, that's something new. Okay. Okay, so I'll accept a motion to approve the staff report and receive item 13.2. Correspondence. Councillor Kaleshi, all in favor? That's carried. Item 4.6 is a report from Planner Kavanaugh, application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit the development of two-story commercial building consisting of motor vehicle repair, office, retail, and restaurant uses, Gagnon Walker Domes, 1637016 Ontario Incorporated, 506 and 510 Main Street North, east of Main Street, north of Williams Parkway, in Ward 1. Is anybody in attendance this evening that wishes to see a presenter or speak on this item? Nobody's in attendance for this evening? Then let the record show that no one attending this statutory public meeting requested an applicant's submission, staff presentation, or requested to speak on this matter. Does the applicant wish to make a submission to committee on the proposal? No? Okay. Are there any questions of clarification from members of council? Seeing none, would someone like to move approval of the staff report? And there are no correspondence items related to this. Councillor Gibson, all those in favor? That's carried. On item 4.7 is a report from Stephen Dykstra, Development Planner, application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision to create a residential subdivision including single detached dwellings, townhome units, parkland, valley land, and buffer blocks, Goldberg Group, Cedar City, Greenville, Maytor Incorporated, southwest corner of Mayfield Road and Torbram Road. Is anyone here this evening who wishes to hear a submission from the applicant and presentation from city staff? Did you put your hand up? It's not an auction, but did you wish to see a presentation this evening? Okay, thank you. Then we'll keep that item active. Item 4.8 is a report from Carmen Caruso, Central Area Planner. It's an application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit 590 residential units within 3 high-rise mixed-use towers and 6 3-story stacked townhouse units. Weston Consulting, Rose Garden Residence Incorporated, 122 to 130 Main Street North, 6 and 7 Nelson Street East, 7 and 11 Church Street East in Ward 1. And I know that we have a delegation on that this evening, and I'm going to assume that you wish to see, I'm looking for you. You wish to see a presentation? Okay, so we'll come back to that item as well. So, Mr. Clerk, can you remind me which items we adjourned? 4.1? So 4.2 and 3 are active? 4.5 and 6? Okay. And 4.2? Okay. Okay. On item, we'll go now to item, members of committee, 4.2. And Mr. Clerk, just for clarification this evening, members, we hear the presentations as we did in the previous process, and then we ask members of the public to come forward. Okay. So at this point, I will invite Andrew Walker, Gagnon Walker Domes, welcome, to come forward and do the presentation on the part of the applicant, and then we'll ask Stephen Dykstra, development planner for the city. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Committee, and the public. My name is Andrew Walker, and I'm a principal planner with Gagnon Walker Domes Limited. I'm here tonight on behalf of Jaswinder Singh and Harkit Kangura, registered owners of the property referred to municipally as 9416 Highway 50. The property is located on the west side of Highway 50 and north of Clarkway Drive. The subject lands are approximately 0.74 hectares or 1.84 acres in size, and is currently being utilized for outdoor storage for truck and trailer parking. The site has frontage on both Highway 50 and Clarkway Drive and is only accessed at the current moment from Highway 50. The subject site is located within the Brampton Secondary Plan Area 41. An official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application was filed on November 30th, 2016, and was deemed complete by the City of Brampton on November 23rd, 2017. The purpose of the application is to permit the redevelopment of the subject site excuse me, for office, including medical, commercial, and drive-through uses consisting of the following: a one-story, multi-unit commercial retail office building with a total gross floor area of 863.96 square meters, or 9,299.6 square feet. A one-story drive-through restaurant with a total gross floor area of 195.62 square meters, or 2,105.6 square feet. And an overall combined gross floor area of 1,059.5 square meters, or about 11,405.2 square feet. And there's one access point proposed to Highway 50 and one access point to Clarkway Drive. The surrounding land uses include to the north an existing woodlot, to the south is existing residential and outdoor storage. To the east is Highway 50, beyond which is industrial warehouses located in the city of Vaughan. And to the west is Clarkway Drive, beyond which is existing residential uses. The subject site, as I mentioned before, is proposed to be rezoned as part of this application to permit the development of the commercial, retail, and office development. And this includes a 10-meter buffer to the existing woodlot to the north, that we're working in conjunction with the city and TRCA on its placement. This concludes my presentation, and I'll turn things over to Stephen Dykstra from the city.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members, and members of the public. My name is Stephen Dykstra. I'm a development planner with the City of Brampton. I'm responsible for this application, for managing and reviewing it, and it is to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, and which is to permit additional commercial, office, and retail uses. I'm speaking to the technical aspects of this proposal and the next steps in the planning process. The applicant has already described to you what they're proposing to do, so I will just explain to you the technical items. The official plan, the site is designated residential on Schedule A, which is the general land use designations plan in the city's official plan. Within the secondary plan, it is identified as mixed commercial industrial in the Bram East Secondary Plan, Area 41. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to permit the requested commercial, office, and retail uses. For the zoning, the subject lands are zoned agriculture by bylaw 270-2004 as amended. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to permit, again, the proposed uses. For the next steps, I will continue to process the application and complete a planning review when all of the experts' comments are received. The recommendation report will include a detailed evaluation of the proposal that's going to be brought back to this committee. The recommendation report will include a discussion on any comments or questions received from the public, and the recommendation report will speak to the application's consistency with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and the regional official plan. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members of the public.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public in attendance this evening that want to offer comments for this part of the public meeting. Then I'd ask you to, if I could ask you to sign up with Risha. And then I'll ask you to come forward and state your name and your address for the public meeting record, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak on the proposal. Right, no, you don't have to come around this side.
You needed me to state the following was?
If you could state your name and your address for the public record.
My name is Raj Kamal Bains, 9356 Clarkway Drive.
And you have 5 minutes to make your comments.
I guess my only concern with the proposed plan is the access via Clarkway Drive. That's currently a residential street. It's a very small street, and I'm curious to know how that would impact the street as it is now in regards to litter, traffic, and the actual use of the street. The street ends in a dead end, and as I was told by Mr. Dykstra, the reason for that being is so that people can exit Clarkway to access 50 so they can make a left, but as I know it now, Highway 50 doesn't have a divider going down, so people along that, actually in that lot, were making left and a right as it was prior to the existing use.
Okay. Any questions or comments that are raised this evening as part of the public meeting will be addressed in the staff report. Staff are not always in a position to provide a response.
I've spoken to Mr. Dykstra prior to,
okay.
So that was just basically my only concern is that exit or entrance necessary?
Great.
And I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbors as well, if it makes a difference.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you.
I had the same questioning about the exit on Clarkway because it is a dead-end drive, so.
If I could ask you to come forward as part of the public meeting, I
Sure.
need you to state your name and your
Marcello
address.
Tagliaferri, and I live at 80 Versailles Crescent, and I had the same question as he did about the exit and entry from Clarkway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's Rosalie Lacourte, 80 Versailles Crescent. In addition to the access way, the condition of Clarkway Drive currently is not to a good standard. So is there any traffic studies that are going to be done? And what are the noise accommodations to having the increased volume close to our residential area that the city might be taking into consideration?
Again, all the comments will be responded to in the staff report. If there's any questions that you have following this evening's meeting, you can always send them in. Written submissions are accepted and part of the public record as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of clarification from members of committee? Seeing none, would someone like to move the staff recommendation? You snuck on there, Councillor
Certainly
Qureshi.
did not. I just had two quick questions. One with what is currently being used there, and the woodlot. Is it? What's the zoning on the woodlot currently? To the north.
So through Madam Chair, I can respond if the committee wishes. So through you, Madam Chair, the current use of the site, I believe it was referenced just by the applicant that there is storage of trucks on the property at this point in time. I cannot confirm at this point in time if there are permissions that exist for that use at this time. And with respect to the woodlots, though, there is a woodlot located just to the north on the northerly abutting site, and the zone of that property is an agricultural zone.
Sorry, and I knew it was ag, but I just is it protected in any way? I don't recall. Is it farmed?
So again, through you, Madam Chair, so the site to the north, I don't believe there's any farming operations that are occurring on it. The designation within the official plan is a open space designation, which is for the principal purpose of protecting the woodlots at that location.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Would someone like to move this approval of the staff report? Councillor Miles, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item 4.3. I'd like to invite Joan McIntyre, Principal, Malone Given Parsons, to make the presentation on behalf of the applicant, followed by Neil Grady, Development Planner. Hi, Joan, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of committee and public. My name is Joan McIntyre. I'm a principal of the planning firm Malone Given Parsons, and I'm representing Great Gulf Group of companies on this application. The 48 hectares of land subject to the applications are located on either side of Embleton Road, and they have just under 700 meters of combined frontage on Heritage Road. The lands are at the north end of the Riverview Heights community, which consists of approximately 465 hectares, bounded by Steeles on the south and Mississauga Road and Heritage Roads on the east and west. The application for this property was first submitted in 2006. Since then, an environmental assessment has taken place to determine the road system and valley crossings, as well as a secondary plan and block plan approval in 2011. Between 3,600 to 3,700 residential units are expected in this community based on the block plan approval. Great Gulf is the largest landowner within the block. Their 123 hectare southern parcel was draft approved in 2012, and it's about halfway through construction. Services to this site subject to the application are being extended through that subdivision and others up to Embleton Road. The lands are currently vacant and in agricultural use. Huttonville Elementary School is located on the north side of Embleton Road, and this application will provide some additional lands for the school site on the western boundary. The Credit River is located north and east of the lands, and due to the dense vegetation and the steep grades, there's really not any views into the valley from the site, and there's very limited access. So the lands will not benefit from their location next to this natural amenity, which is one of the reasons for the official plan amendment. The limits of the features on the site were established through the block plan approval process and remain unchanged on the application. A public park has been provided, and the service commercial is generally as proposed on the block plan, with the exception of a small adjustment to the southern boundary. And this area is under discussion with the adjacent owner, I understand. The majority of the northern portion of the lands were designated for executive residential use, and Great Gulf is proposing to eliminate the large executive lots and add approximately 200 more units, resulting in a density of 63 jobs and persons per hectare, as shown on this plan. This is more consistent with regional and provincial policies than the 43 units per hectare anticipated in the block plan approval. The amendment also proposes to reconfigure Rivermont Road north of Embleton Road. A reduced right-of-way and addition of a traffic circle to maintain continuous traffic flow is being proposed. Rivermont Road was originally oversized to delay the widening of Heritage Road as long as possible, but I understand the EA for the widening of Heritage was completed late in 2017, and it's likely that the construction of that road will be underway before services reach this land. A total of approximately 679 units are being proposed, consisting primarily of single detached lots with frontages ranging from 34 to 50 feet, and of the remaining units, 15% are semis, 12% towns, and 16% apartments. The city's urban design department has asked Great Gulf to consider 6-story apartments on the south side of Embleton Road, which is another component of the official plan amendment, which Neil will be addressing in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Welcome, Neil.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning and Development Committee, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil Grady, and I'm the planner that works here at the City Planning and Development Services Department that's been assigned the processing of these applications and the compilation of a future recommendation report. Ms. McIntyre has provided you with a fulsome description of the nature of the applications to amend the official plan, application to amend the zoning bylaw, and a proposed draft plan of subdivision. So this evening I want to speak to you about the official plan designations, secondary plan designations, the current zoning, next steps in the planning process, and some preliminary issues that we've identified to date. So starting with the official plan, the official plan designates the property residential, open space, communities designated greenfield area, Valleyland watercourse corridor, woodland, provincially significant wetland, and upscale executive housing special policy area 1, Bram West secondary plan. The applicant's proposed official plan amendment is to delete the upscale executive housing special policy area 1, Bram West secondary plan designation and associated policies. There may also be an amendment required to Schedule A2, the commercial schedule of the city's official plan, with respect to the proposed expansion of the service commercial designation that Ms. McIntyre spoke to you about previously. With respect to the secondary plan, the Bram West secondary plan designates the property executive residential, low/medium density residential, service commercial, stormwater management facilities, Valleyland, senior elementary school, parkette, minor collector roads with a 23 to 26 meter right-of-way width identified, special policy areas 15 and 17, and mixed use. The applicant's proposed amendment to the Bram West secondary plan involves, again, amending the executive residential designation in the secondary plan to vary lot mix and density regarding the proposed single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse purposes. Also amending the mixed use designation to permit a 6-story mid-rise apartment building along the south side of Embleton Road and further to the south, semi-detached uses. Redesignating lands on the east side of Heritage Road, south of Embleton Road, to permit the enlargement of the service commercial designation. A reconfiguration of Rivermont Road north of Embleton Road, and the proposed deletion of the special policy areas 15 and 17. With respect to the current zoning, the property is zoned agricultural A and agricultural with a section number 483. The applicant has submitted a subdivision to implement the lots, blocks, uses on the proposed draft plan of subdivision. With respect to next steps in the planning process, we'll need to consider all the comments, questions, and written submissions received from the public. We will be undertaking continued further technical and planning review, including conformity with the region's official plan, the provincial growth plan, and also the regional appeal official plan. With respect to some of the preliminary issues that have been identified to date, fundamentally, whether the proposed deletion of executive housing can be supported, is the site layout as on the proposed draft plan of subdivision to be varied, including changes as proposed to the configuration of Rivermont Road and the extent of window streets along the valley. The preparation of a recommendation report for the consideration of the Planning and Development Committee, and that report will include, out of necessity, any a discussion on any comments, questions, or written submissions received from the public with respect to these applications. And all the members of the public that provide their contact information will be advised by our department when the future planning recommendation report is proceeding. And that concludes the presentation, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public in attendance this evening who wish to make comments on this application to come forward. And I'll ask you first to sign up with Risha. Welcome. If you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the public record, and you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Julie Harlow. I live at 83 River Road in Huttonville. And I'd like to thank the lady up in the crowd that actually would sit beside me with my bag of garbage. But I want to really make some comments about the densification of that plan or proposal. This bag full of garbage is just a small part of what I collected in the Credit River behind my house. And this, we've seen an increasing amount of garbage being blown, flowing down the river, from construction from the new development to the north of us. And I'm so afraid that increasing densification of our area is going to be a terrible thing for our beautiful river valley and the water that we just depend on to drink and to live. Not only that, I brought this bag of garbage because I'm really passionate about the wildlife that is down there and the impact that proposed densification of that area is going to have on that wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Honor Bhatt, and
What's your address?
Sorry?
Your name and your address?
Honor Bhatt is my name, and address is 8890 Heritage Road, Brampton. The concern I have with this is about the traffic on the Heritage Road. When we're constructing these houses, currently when we are going to our houses on the Heritage Road, which are on the west side of Heritage Road, it takes about, from Steeles to Ambleton, it takes about 20 minutes because of the traffic congestion. And if we're building this development, all the equipment, all the construction employees which are gonna go there, it's gonna, traffic is gonna increase. So I believe the prerequisite to build this should be the widening of Heritage Road, which I know is in progress, but it should happen before we can start this project. Thank you.
Madam Chair, distinguished members of the council, particularly Councilors Paleshi and Willens, whose ward this is a part of. My name is Joe Tompkin. I'm a resident of 9086 Heritage Road, and I'm here to express a few concerns with the proposal. Essentially, my family and I are against it. We've been living at Heritage Road at this residence for approximately 19 years. We've seen a lot happen in the last 19 years. There's been a lot of intense public debate, planning, public meetings, staff planning reports and whatnot that went into ultimately the creation of the Grand West Secondary Plan, including and ultimately the Riverview Heights Community Design Guidelines. So essentially I'm going to walk you through a few slides that helps support our assertions, but essentially the proposed application to amend the official plan, it contradicts the design vision of the Grand West Secondary Plan. It has a negative impact on current residents and current community at large in the effect that it will have on the property values of people who live in the area right now. And quite frankly, it undermines the process and credibility by which planning occurs within the city of Brampton. As I said, 18 years have gone into coming to a solid plan that everybody has signed up to, and what is being proposed today, make no mistake, is to undermine all of that. So, sorry. The arrow's okay. So, that's fine. So, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. I'll try to make this brief. I know I'm limited to 5 minutes. So, an extract from section 1.1 of the Riverview Heights Community Design Guidelines states that the planning process involved input from landowners group, their consultants, the Credit Valley Conservation Authority, the region, and City of Brampton staff and council. The community design framework was prepared and endorsed by council back in January 2010, along with other studies required for stage 1 block plan. Essentially, it acts as a tool for the implementation of the plan throughout the subdivision, site plan approval and construction stages by providing guidance for the build form, landscape, urban design, and architectural review process. And the highest level of detail has been provided for those areas that make the Riverview Heights community distinct. Specifically the special character areas that are outlined in the vision document, which includes upscale executive. And if you, section 5.4 of the same community design guidelines, it really can be interpreted as the mission statement, and that is to support the physical design of the community, including distinct neighborhoods, centers and edges, a well-defined open space system extending the natural features into the site, a clear hierarchy of streets and elements that make Riverview Heights distinct from other communities within Brampton. And this site ultimately is rich in natural features, including the Credit River, as was pointed out by Joan McIntyre. To the north of the area is the Credit River Valley. To the east is Credit River Valley as well. And we'll get to it, but to the immediately adjacent to the west side is established large property homes. And this is an extract from the development guidelines, which kind of illustrates the acknowledgement and recognition of upscale executive housing as being the primal sort of special characteristics of the area. And the area in question is outlined in blue at the very top, the Special Policy Area 15. And again, an extract of what that means coming out of the section 3.2 states that the primary distinguishing features include high-quality, consistent architectural styles, a rich streetscape extending from the roadway to the face of the home. An enhanced public realm will be developed for the upscale housing areas, including street boulevards, gateway conditions, and other public realm conditions adjacent to these residential areas. And this is, again, an extract which shows a lot of the attention and detail which has gone into it, which includes, among other things, primary upgrades, which require consistent detailing on all exposed elevations, window treatments, bricks, precast detailing, etc. Not to mention gateway lots and window streets. So really, then it boils down to this, what you're looking at right now. This is the official plan for upscale executive housing residential. So again, if we focus our attention to the top, we've got the Credit Valley to the top north. We've got the Credit Valley again to the east side. And on the left side of Heritage Road, which runs north and south, there's a blue rectangle. That's where I live. To give you some perspective, that house right there is a 1-acre property. As you can, generally speaking, going north of me, you can see the size of the properties vary, but on average, they're probably about 1 acre in size. So what we're looking at right now is we're looking at a very large existing install base of residential installations. People live there, we pay taxes, we've been there forever. And some of us haven't. Some of us have bought into this area as an investment. So
Joe, are you on the home stretch?
yes, I am. So if you look at this, have a look at this, at the proposed plan, which is the official plan. Very nice, very balanced. It's very homogeneous and ties in. It's in simpatico with the homes to the left. And by the way, by my count, if you count the squares in that area that we're looking at now, that's 315 units. So overlay that now, you'll see this is what they're planning. So this is exactly what they're, and that means counting those squares, that 315 goes up to 500. So essentially, this is no longer a prestige, upscale, special area as was intended. So this is the last slide. If the official plan and draft plan of subdivision were amended, it would be a regrettable loss for Brampton. Special Policy Area 15 uniquely contains the visual composition of the Credit River Valley on its north and east sides, as I mentioned, large residential properties on its west side, which is clearly understood and appropriately reflected as a special character area in the current official plan designation of upscale executive residential. It would also be in contradiction to the design vision of the community as clearly articulated and demonstrated in the previous slides. It would seriously bring into question the integrity and credibility of the process by which the Bramwell Secondary Plan was established, right? I mean, we've been here before. The last 18 years, I've been here a few times. Lots of public consultation. This is it. It's been determined. It is the official plan, and it's agreed to. Again, to reference that the process for Riverview Heights has involved input from all the landowners groups, consultants, and everyone with a stake in the game. It would also betray the neighboring residents and landowners who have made property purchase decisions on the promise of upscale executive development and its positive impact on property value. It would also betray those of us who have invested in our properties over the years to make it very compatible with forthcoming executive upscale development. And to cite just to illustrate this, this is my property, taking a shot at 2000 on the left, and this is what it looks like now in 2018 as of this morning. So lots of development, lots of investment in my property in terms of landscaping, making it really tie into what will be, facing my house, executive upscale residential. So that gets undermined, of course, if this is diminished into high density housing.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up. You're almost at 8 minutes.
I'm at the end. So reduced lot sizes, rearing lot mix, semi-detached laneway townhouses, a 6-story mid-rise apartment building will have, make no mistake, a diminishing effect on the intended prestige of this area. There aren't a lot of areas like this in Brampton. Closing statement, the official plan is sound, stay the course. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you provided a copy of this presentation
I
for
have.
staff?
This is
Great.
yes.
Thank you. Seeing no further, Council, I was going to ask members of council have questions of clarification only. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to staff, I was wondering what the status, if you could give an update on Heritage Road from the current expansion north of Amazon and up to, I guess not as far as the creek, but what's the current status of Heritage Road? Timelines?
So through you, Madam Chair. So unfortunately, planning staff don't have details on the status of the construction and planning of the construction of Heritage Road, but that's an item that that staff can look to and provide some comment back to you.
Okay. And then the other question that I did have with respect to the 6-story mid-rise, and the applicant had suggested that staff had requested this mid-rise. Can I get a comment on that? Unless I heard incorrectly.
So through you, Madam Chair, just I'm seeking some confirmation here. There is no understanding of a request that was put forward in that way.
Okay. And then I just asked that with Councillor Willens and I, we working on almost every day since the snow has melted the garbage from literally Amazon all the way up to north of this site, and we literally work on this almost daily. So the garbage is an issue. And I guess I'm just going to request that Malone Given Parsons reach out to the councillors for this area, Councillor Willens and I, and set up a town hall to bring this to the residents that have concerns.
Councillor Palashi, that's coloring way outside the lines of a question of clarification, but I think it's something that you can take under advisement with.
I can
the planning
rephrase it.
consultant. I'm sure you could rephrase it, but it's still coloring outside the lines. Would you like to move approval of
happy
the
to
staff
move it.
report? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next report is 4.7, Mr. Clerk? Oh, I'm sorry, 4.4. It's a report from Neil Grady. I will ask the applicant presentation, Rob Lavecchia. Hi, Rob. And it'll be followed by a staff presentation from Neil Grady.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members, and the public. My name is Rob Lavecchia. I'm with KLM Planning Partners, who represent the applicant. The applicant has filed applications for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. The subject lands are located on the west side of Cliffside Drive, near the intersection of Cliffside Drive and Embleton Road, and are approximately 1.24 hectares in size. The applications are within the Bram West Secondary Plan area, and the lands are designated executive residential. The lands are also within the Riverview Heights community, and the proposed development would generally conform to the approved block plan. The proposed development would also conform to and implement the City of Brampton official plan. The proposed draft plan of subdivision would subdivide the lands for a public road, environmental protection, and 19 single detached lots, which range in frontage from approximately 50 feet to 64 feet. The zoning bylaw amendment would zone the lands residential single detached and open space, and would facilitate the proposed development. We continue to work with staff to address any issues that are raised through the process, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. You're back on deck, Neil.
Good evening once again, Madam Chair, members of Planning and Development Committee, ladies and gentlemen. Last name is Grady, G-R-A-D-Y. First name is Neil, N-E-A-L. I'm the planner here at the City Planning and Development Services Department. That's been assigned the processing of the proposed draft plan of subdivision and associated application to amend the zoning bylaw. And this evening I want to speak to you briefly about the planning status with respect to the official plan amendment, secondary plan, zoning bylaw, next stages in the process, and preliminary key issues identified to date. The property is designated residential in the official plan, communities, and upscale executive housing special policy area 1, Bram West secondary plan. The application conforms to the applicable designations and policies of the official plan, and an amendment to that document is not required. With respect to the Bram West secondary plan, the subject property is designated executive residential. The application will be required to conform to the residential design criteria contained in the approved Riverview Heights Community Design Guidelines, and an amendment to the secondary plan in that respect is not being sought by the applicant. The subject property is zoned residential hamlet 1 by the city's comprehensive area zoning bylaws as amended. The applicant has submitted a draft zoning bylaw to implement the various lots, blocks, and uses on the proposed draft plan of subdivision. With respect to next steps in the processing of the applications, that includes considering all comments, questions, and written submissions received from the public, continued further technical and planning review, including conformity with the provincial policy statement, the provincial growth plan, and the regional official plan. With respect to the initial issues that have been identified to date, one such issue pertains to the extent of the window road treatment along the open space valley land component that's on the draft plan of subdivision. And that issue and other issues will be addressed through the ongoing processing of the application and within the recommendation report. The preparation of the recommendation report for future Planning and Development Committee of Council will include a discussion of any comments, questions, or written submissions on the applications, and all members of the public that provided their contact information with respect to these applications will be notified in writing by our department when that future planning recommendation report is finalized. And that concludes the presentation, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And I now would like to invite members of the public who wish to make some comments to come forward. I don't see anybody, so I guess you did a great job with your presentation, gentlemen. Nobody's coming forward? Okay, are there any questions of clarification from members of council? Or members of committee? Seeing none. Councillor Williams, would you like to move approval of the staff report? All those in favor? That's carried. The next item is 4.7. And I'll invite either Janice Robinson is going to come forward. I'll ask you to come around on this side, Janice, and I'll have Stephen Dykstra, you'll be doing the staff presentation.
Committee. My name is Janice Robinson of Goldberg Group, representing the owners of Cedar City Mater Inc. The reason why I was facing you is the two gentlemen that wanted to have the presentation have left. And we spoke with them, they're neighbors, neighboring landowners, and we spoke with them before the meeting, and they left shortly after putting up their hands. So that's why I was
Is there anybody else who wanted to comment on this application? Seeing none,
So
then if you want to make some comments on
go around to them?
Sure. Sorry about that.
Just didn't want to go through the whole presentation like the last one, and the person had already left. And so committee may recall, like, this is a subdivision on the southwest corner of Torbram and Mayfield with intersections on Mayfield Road. This matter was before committee on March 5th, a delegation by Beth Halpenny regarding the intersection locations on Mayfield Road, which is under construction by the region now. So my request is that this matter be brought back before Planning Committee with a recommendation report before the summer recess, so that there can be some certainty on the part of the region with respect to these intersection locations. We've received the comments on the draft plan of subdivision, and they can all be addressed through prior to the actual draft approval being issued and in conditions of draft approval. So that's my request, so that the region can proceed with their contracts and their roadworks with certainty from the city on the intersection locations. So I'm pleased to answer any questions if you have any.
I have two members on the board. This is kind of awkward because it's under the statutory public meeting portion of it. So questions of clarification. Council, I understand, but the request will have to be referred. Councillor Spovieri.
I think, Madam Chair, I guess the point of clarification is, can staff look at this request and report back to us?
So through you, Madam Chair, there are a number of background studies that staff do have to continue reviewing and really understand how they can be approved by the various commenting divisions and agencies and such. There would be some difficulty with us being able to come back as quickly as the June committee meeting with a recommendation on this application and a recommendation of approval. Staff generally understand that we would need more time than that in order to come back with a positive recommendation for the application. So that's just a general statement in that regard.
Well, and that's fine. Just I guess if it's possible, I guess the delegation's asking if it's possible to do it, look at it.
So through you, Madam Chair, I just want to advise committee and the public that it's a bit presumptuous for request to be made to fast track essentially a development application. We're in a statutory public meeting, and staff always take best efforts to process applications, and it'll come back when staff are ready to make a fulsome recommendation to committee for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi? Okay, I'll let one of the area councillors, Councillor Sprovieri, move approval of that. Moved by Councillor Sprovieri. All in favor? That's carried. I know you had to prove to your wife you were here tonight by getting your name in the minutes, Councillor Paleshi, but just moving it along. I gotcha. Next item is 4.8, and the applicant presentation is by Mark Emery, and the staff presentation by Carmen Caruso. And perhaps those individuals who wish to speak on this evening can maybe start lining up and signing in if you're interested in speaking. Might speed things up. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of committee, members of the public. My name is Mark Emery. I'm with Weston Consulting, here representing the applicant, Rose Garden Residences, Inc., owners of the combined property holdings of 122 to 130 Main Street North, 6 and 7 Nelson Street East, and 7 and 11 Church Street East. The site comprises 0.87 hectares, which is 2.15 acres. It's comprised of existing commercial buildings fronting on Main and on Nelson. There's 2 older residential buildings along Church Street. It's important to note that a previous application was endorsed by council on this site in 2006 for a 17-story complex of 333 residential units and 800 square meters of commercial space. The former proposal, as designed in 2004, was actually for a large single building which wrapped around the corner of Main and Nelson in a contiguous mass. Since that approval, there has been a growing provincial emphasis on encouraging transit-oriented development in the 2014 provincial policy statement. In particular, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe of 2017 promotes high-level intensification around transit stations and creates a mobility hub around the downtown Brampton GO station and the Queen and Main transit routes. It also targets 60% of new residential growth to happen within existing built-up areas. Therefore, the current proposal before you tonight is for 3 towers of 23, 25, and 27 stories, with 590 residential apartment units in 3 tall, thin point towers, along with 6 stacked townhouses along Church Street. It proposes 5,205 square meters of commercial for a total FSI of 6.2. There's a heritage house at 7 Church Street, which is proposed to be retained, and the curve in the former Far Garage building at 122 to 130 Main is proposed to be replicated within the main floor of one of the condominium buildings. The towers are designed around a central courtyard and a loop driveway system, which incorporates high-level landscaping and a water feature. There will be 2.5 levels of underground parking and a parking structure for a total of 645 spaces, and vehicular access will be from Nelson Street East. The particular planning considerations for this property include dealing with the existing heritage issues for 7 Church and the curved frontage along Main Street, working with the periphery of a special policy area to provide pedestrian egress onto Church Street, and providing for a floodproofing safety plan, which will come later through the site plan process. The project is certainly aligned and more aligned with the Ontario Government Provincial Policy Statement and the Provincial Growth Plan, which calls for significant intensification around the downtown Brampton mobility hub. The heights are consistent with other developments in the area, and we believe this is an exciting addition to the downtown. Will integrate nicely with the future Ryerson University, the Rose Theatre, the YMCA, and bring more residents to the downtown. There have been a host of department and agency comments, which we have just received. We will be working closely with city staff, including the Heritage Department, to resolve any issues. We will also be proceeding to Brampton's brand-new urban design panel on April 24th as one of the first items. So I look forward to hearing comments from the community and the public on this, and turn over to Carmen Caruso.
Thank you, Mark.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carmen Caruso, and I'm the Central Area Planner for the City of Brampton, and I'm responsible for managing the review of this application to amend the zoning bylaw to permit 3 mixed-use towers and a stacked townhouse building. The applicant has described the proposal for this development application, and now I will describe the policy context, including the land use status and the next steps. The site is designated a central area in the official plan. A central area is a part of the city where investment and intensification permitting a wide range of office, retail, commercial, and service activities are expected. A range of institutional and residential are also permitted within the central area. The property is within an anchor mobility hub. The anchor mobility hub is of strategic importance as it is expected to anchor the regional transportation system, providing connections across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area to accommodate the highest combined people and jobs per hectare, and is expected to achieve a floor space index of 4.0 over the entire anchor hub area. An official plan amendment is not required for this to facilitate this proposal. Property is designated central area mixed use in the downtown Brampton secondary plan. This designation is intended to accommodate a mixed use of development incorporating any combination of residential, commercial, office, retail, hotel, open space, recreational, institutional, and cultural uses. The property is also located within Special Policy Area 3A. This area is subject to flooding during a major storm event. The policies within Special Policy 3A include technical matters that need to be addressed to ensure public health and safety while still enabling economic growth in the downtown. Buildings within the Special Policy Area need to be appropriately flood-proofed and provide emergency access to flood-free land. This policy area is limited to a total of 900 new residential units and 41,000 square meters of non-residential uses. The zoning on this property allows for a wide range of residential and commercial uses and includes an apartment building or a hotel, which can be up to 17 stories in height. The zoning bylaw also includes site-specific criteria related to flood proofing. Since the applicant is proposing a more intense development that the existing zoning permits, an amendment to the zoning bylaw is required. This application has been circulated to a number of internal city departments as well as external agencies. After tonight's public meeting, further technical review and analysis of the proposal will take place. Issues such as the appropriateness of land use, urban form and density, the impact on heritage resources, and the amount of residential units relative to the total amount permitted within the special policy area will be, as well as other matters, will be assessed. Also, development staff will evaluate comments from circulated departments and agencies, as well as comments made at this public meeting this evening. Once this analysis and assessment of the proposal is complete, staff will return to the Planning and Development Committee with a recommendation report that evaluates the appropriateness of the proposal and the consistency of the proposal with the provincial policy statement, conformity with the Greater Golden Horseshoe growth plan and the regional official plan and the city's official plan. All members of the public that provide their contact information with respect to this application will be advised when a future recommendation report will be forwarded for consideration by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. We've got a lineup. I think, Chris, you're the first delegation this evening. You come forward, state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Boehner, and I'm co-chair of Citizens for a Better Brampton. To begin, most everyone here will agree that downtown Brampton needs intensification, investment, and new residents, and this proposal being presented this evening is very welcome news. This can be a great project, but it requires a few changes and simply cannot be approved in its present form. I don't have a speech or anything, just have comments and suggestions that both myself and my co-chair Doug Bryden came up with to help this, to make these suggestions. And if people don't know who Doug Bryden is, Doug Bryden has a 50-year development background. He developed projects like Roebank Plaza, Toronto Eaton Centre, and helped develop the path system in downtown Toronto. So I do value his opinion. The three towers are simply too much for the site. They will create a wall of aluminum and glass from pretty much every view. We believe that two taller towers would be preferable, as this would create much needed space between the towers and more of a visual interest for our skyline. There will be too much shadowing, as the three towers are very close proximity with each other. Many units will never see any natural sunlight. I don't know who wants to live in a place like that, but those two towers there, I mean, there's no sunlight that will ever hit those windows. Swirling winds and snow disposal could also be very problematic with the current design. Being on the Heritage Committee, I think there's an opportunity to have a heritage-inspired podium with the site, because it is the former site of Farr's Garage, and Farr's Garage was a very influential building to our heritage of our downtown, and some of the design elements could be incorporated into the podium design. Roof lines should also be a little bit more architectural, maybe some peaks or angles, and try to hide the mechanical penthouses, and exposed HVAC equipment would be also recommended. There's a big trend for architectural lighting that could be incorporated into the design for nighttime skyline presence. We also felt there was an opportunity for commercial street presence along Main Street, make it higher ceilings so it attracts higher end tenants, restaurants. There's going to be a university downtown. We're going to change our downtown, so we need that space for these new tenants that will be coming in. Also, we need clarification as to what type of buildings they will be. Will they be rentals, condos, affordable housing, or student residences? Because I mean, we don't know what. I don't think there was any kind of use specified. And it's encouraging to hear that the newly formed Urban Design Review Panel will be reviewing this proposal. I think that's very important. And we just felt that we just would like to see better architecture with this proposal. It's a very important site, so let's get it right this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next presentation, if you could state your name, address.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bailey, B-A-I-L-E-Y, just as the Irish cream is spelt. And before we start our 5 minutes, I'd first like to say to Madam Chair and Councillor Gibson, as a constituent of Wards 1 and 5, I'd like to thank you for your years of service and wish you luck in your retirement.
Thank you, Peter.
I live at 9 George Street North, 2703. I welcome this project. I think it's good for the community. We've been waiting for development for forever. So this is probably the first that will hopefully attract a lot more. My concern is the impact it will have on our infrastructure, such as sewage and water. There's other development poised for the area, such as the university, what's going to happen at the north end of Elizabeth Street, along Nelson. There's a lot more planned for this area, so I think a hard look has to be taken at can our infrastructure handle it. I'm a little concerned with just the one driveway in and out of the building, if I'm not mistaken. That seems to be how I saw the drawings. Am I correct on that? On Nelson Street, there it is. I think that's for a unit that size with almost 600 units. That's the only in and out. I think that's pushing your luck. If something were to go wrong, if there was an emergency, if that entrance is blocked, if there's a train derailment in the area, I think there's problems with just that one entrance and exit, so I think that should be looked at very closely. But other than that, I think I welcome the development downtown and hope to see more of it, and wish everyone luck. Right. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. Please state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I live at 8 Village Court. I noticed the city spent a lot of money on downtown to attract development, and this seems to be the first bite. So a lot of people are concerned that the city spent too much money downtown because there's not much to show. This would be something to actually show for it. For the units, there's been concern about what types they are, whether it's student residences, which would work for university downtown, or if it's families or a mix, it would all help downtown. Currently, downtown basically starts to wind down at about 8 o'clock and is closed by 10. There's small towns that manage to keep their downtowns open later, and the issue from what I've seen for downtown is there's just not enough people downtown. This would bring those people there. The parking, as has been noted, there's one entryway. The organization has asked for lower parking. Even the amount they're asking for seems high, but that would be entirely up to the city to reduce it. Because if you look at it, it's right by the train station where a lot of people want to commute to downtown. And there's also excellent transit access with the transit terminal right there. So whether them being forced to have that much parking is questionable. If you do the math for underground parking, you're looking at least 50 grand a spot. So you're looking at least 60 grand on average added to each of the units, which is a lot of money added to the price. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Janusz Kalo, 1719 Church Street, East in Brampton. Just a couple concerns I have, basically to do with the noise. My backyard is going to be right in the back there, where they're proposing their tower to go up. So I'm just worried about the noise. Apparently their underground parking is going to be going in the backyard there too, as well. So we were discussing, they said they may build a wall to get rid of that noise, or they'll look into it. The next thing concern was, I have some nice, beautiful trees in the backyard. Now I'm wondering about the sun and shadow effect on them. Are they going to have to be cut down later on down the road because it's not getting enough sunlight? Or is there a way that they can adjust the buildings that they'll get enough sunlight so they won't die? Okay. And then traffic. I would rather recommend very minimum parking as opposed to the, I think it's 500 some odd parking spots they're offering, because downtown is already congested enough. So I know a lot of people buy apartment buildings without parking. I was just in New York on the week, and there's a lot of apartment buildings there with no parking at all, and people get by that way. I think maybe that might be a recommendation or a suggestion that they may take into consideration to try and reduce the noise and to try and reduce the traffic downtown.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Charlene Borg. I'm at 15 Church Street East, so right next door. Same sort of thing, just wondering about some shadow studies. I know this is maybe not the final configuration, but just wondering about shadow studies, wind tunnels, and also because excavation is going to happen directly behind and beside me, any structural things that I need to be concerned about. And yeah, sunlight within the unit, they do seem really close together for at such a density, I guess, just so close together, so no sunlight in between, which is fine if it was already looking like Toronto, but Mississauga's got some space in between their buildings. It would be nice to see a little bit more space possible. And also wondering if the townhouse units beside are also going to be residential, or if those would be commercial/residential mix. So I think that was it. Oh, and garbage placement. I wouldn't mind knowing where garbage placement bins would be as well. And I also welcome this development. I'm very excited about it. And yay for the downtown.
Thank you, Charlene. I just want to remind everybody again that all of your comments will be addressed in the staff report, and you can always call the planner for updates.
Wonderful.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Hello.
Hi. My name is Warren Faulkner, 58 Church Street East. Madam Chair, council members, the rest of us, public. Forgive me if I repeat what someone else said because I couldn't hear everything that was being said. When you get old, these things happen. I like the idea of the whole idea I think it's great. But I have a few questions. Number one, someone said earlier that it would probably be more practical to have two buildings higher. Now, if I look at this diagram, I don't know anything about wind. Well, I know a bit about wind because I sail. But this looks to me like to be a whirlwind of wind, a lot of wind in that flood plan area, plain. My other concerns are regarding flow of traffic. There's only one way in and out. I think that could be a problem. I know this street very well, Nelson Street, and it is a tremendous challenge to get onto Main Street from Nelson Street, especially if you want to go south. I hate traffic signals, but I don't, that might be the solution. I don't think we need any more stop signs, any more traffic signals, but I think there's a problem if you want to get on Main Street. Likewise, Union Street at the other end isn't much better because it's a hidden, you can't see people come around the corner easily. So I think it's got some problems here. My one solution might be try to have some sort of access onto Church Street East. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Anybody else wish to come forward and make comments? Can you come back? I don't think you used your whole 5 minutes, so if you want to come back, because...
I was just also wondering about, Charlene Borg, once again from 15 Church Street, wondering about concrete retaining walls around the site, how tall they would be, what they would look like. I think that was it. I'm sure you said I can come back and, not tonight.
You can always put in, send in some written submissions, and everything that comes in on this application will be recorded as part of the public record and responded to.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. And you know who your area councillors are as well, Charlene.
Hello, my
Alan?
name is Wendong Luo. I'm from 32 Church Street East. And I happened to see the plan before. Actually, it's one building, and then now it's turned out to be 3 buildings. I think that 3 buildings might be too many. As some guys mentioned before, where might be wind flow among between the building. That's also a problem. That's all my concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to really make sure that we tonight let the residents know that are here for this item and for the other items that were presented tonight, that staff are very excited to reference that we have for this meeting, and really our intent is for future meetings going forward as well, that all of the background studies that are submitted by the applicants in favor of their development applications, identifying all the technical matters as it relates to shadow studies and traffic reports, all of those will be made available to the larger public by way of the city's website. And so residents could at any time follow up with staff that are on the file, any given file, and ask for just an easy way of trying to understand and navigate to that repository of studies, and staff can provide a link as well. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Yeah, actually, that's very helpful. But when somebody goes on www.brampton.ca, what information do they need to access it? The address, the file number, secret password?
So, Madam Chair, we've identified it within the planning area. So if people navigate on the website through to the Planning and Development Services area, they'll see a link identified, or just some logical clickable areas to get them through to that page. And so if anyone's needing any further assistance, then staff are willing to provide that as well.
Okay, I'd like to suggest that 311 be the operators, the 24/7 call center, be aware, so that somebody can call that regardless of what the time of day, to help them navigate to the site. Okay? Councillor Miles.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I do have a question, if I could, through you to the Planning Department. So, this
Question of clarification.
Yeah, it is. It is of clarification, absolutely. So this particular proposal did go, not this particular proposal, but another proposal went to the Ontario Municipal Board and was given approval. Is that correct? The city had reviewed this particular application, but at some point it ended up at the Ontario Municipal Board, and the Ontario Municipal Board approved what you have in this report that shows what's permitted on the site. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. The previous application was appealed at a certain point, and then there was a settlement procedure at the OMB and a zoning bylaw that was approved by the board, and that is the current zoning on the lands that we find today. So with the permission, generally speaking, for 17 stories and the 330 or so units being permitted on the property.
So the fact that the applicant now has changed the application to 598 units, does that mean that they are beginning the process all over again, and that the city would process this application like any other rezoning application, or do they, I mean, we know what they have as of right because of the OMB, but because they're looking to change it and have further intensification, does that mean we're back at the beginning?
Through the chair again, yes, so this is an independent and new fresh application before the city, and we're required to process it and review it and analyze it as with any other application. So.
Okay, even reading the report, I didn't quite understand that. So, because it's going to be a significant development in the downtown, will there be opportunities other than just coming to planning committee at some point down the road for the public to provide additional input and take a look at the plan as it progresses?
So through you, Madam Chair, so staff will be speaking with the applicant about opportunities to look at supplemental information and sessions with the public. Staff can't confirm at this point in time, though, that there will be supplemental information brought forward and sessions created by the applicant, but we'll be looking at that with them.
Okay. Well, I think the questions, I'm trying to keep this still. Well, it seems obvious that there's a really positive response to the application, but I do think that it's important that there's additional public engagement on this particular application, just to keep everybody informed. It's an exciting project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, would you like to move approval of the staff report? All those in favor? That's carried. And the correspondence 13.1A through to F. Councillor Gibson, you'll move that as well? He says yes. All in favor? That's carried. So that brings to a close our statutory public meetings for this evening. I'll just give people a few minutes to leave the room. Before we move to item 5.1, delegations, we'll bring forward report 7.3, and we have one delegation registered on that. Okay, our first delegation this evening is Colin Chung from Glenn Schnarr & Associates. It's on application to amend the The official plan zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision to permit 151 townhouse dwellings at 9149 Goreway Drive, north of Queen. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Risha, can I ask you to ask the folks to move along and perhaps be a little more quiet?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning and Development Committee, my colleagues at City of Brampton, and hopefully members of the public on this application. My name is Colin Chung.
Colin, do you want to just wait a moment? I think it might be a little more respectful if we had some, it was a little more quiet.
Thank you.
If we're ready.
My name is Colin Chung of Glenn Schnarr Associates. We're the planners for the applicant, National Homes. Before I delve into the presentation for tonight's public meeting, I should clarify that this is a public meeting, but this is a non-statutory public meeting, and the reason for that, Madam Chair, this application is under appeal to the OMB. The OMB appeal was done by the applicant as a placeholder on the basis that the province is moving forward with the transition into the LPAT process. So I would say that the application, although it's under appeal to the OMB, the applicant is eager and certainly looking forward to working with staff and city on the application. The subject site is approximately 10 acres in size. It's on the east side of the Goreway Drive, just north of Queen Street in east part of Brampton. Just for clarification, this site is inside the belt boundary under the provincial definition. The development proposed on this site is considered to be intensification under the provincial policy. The applicant, National Homes, purchased this property back in January 2016. For the better part of less than 1 year, the applicant and their consultant have been working with city staff through pre-consultation, collaboration, discussion, and on December 2016, the formal planning application was filed for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. Just as an aerial photo context, for those who are not familiar with the site, surrounding this site, to the north, there's a existing development called Leisure World, as well as Point of View and Day Spring Seniors Residence. You'll recall the Clarington 3-phase residential apartment tower to the north. To the west, you have predominantly industrial and some vacant properties that are existing residential on the west side of Goreway Drive. To the east, these lands are owned by the Toronto Region Conservation Authority and their conservation lands. And to the south, there's another pocket of development opportunity owned by a private holdings. And to the south of that is Queen Street, which the city is planning for the higher order transit corridor. Before you tonight, Madam Chair, there was a planning application for public meeting on the north side of National Home site. It was an application called Calgore Developments. Nobody came up with that public meeting, so it was actually basically received and accepted by committee. That site to the north of National Homes, which is noted in this slide, is approximately 3 acres in site. And the reason why I bring that up is that as part of the development application for National Homes, the City of Brampton asked of us and required of us to prepare a tertiary plan to look at how the National Homes property, along with the property to the north, Calgore, and there's another property called Alpha Stone to the south, and how those three properties all going to interconnect, interrelate, and how they're going to develop in the future. So one of the things that we have worked on with city staff is a plan called the tertiary plan, for the sake of referring to a plan that deals with all three properties. I think one thing that I wanted to highlight here is that not only did the tertiary plan provide opportunity for three developers and the interface of the three properties together, there was a great opportunity for the applicants and the developers to seize the opportunity of a city-owned open space that's on the east side of the subject property. The city-owned land is basically open space today. It's not a parkland, but it's a city-owned land that's just vacant. It's not being used. So as part of the tertiary plan, one of the things that we explored with city staff was how do we augment that city-owned land by creating a really robust city park. So part of the tertiary plan exercise involved us working with city staff to come up with a solution to add on to that city-owned land to create a very robust, functional city park for the existing residents as well as the new future residents coming to this neighborhood. The city park is being proposed at 2.6 acres, which is, generally speaking, pretty good size to provide your typical park with playground, with gazebo, with very integrated trail pathways that interconnect with the existing neighborhood as well as the future neighborhood. It's typical size that you would define in the city's OP in terms of the type of park that you envision. So how was that done? The city currently owns 1.93 acres of open space. The applicant, National Homes, is proposing to add on to that by another 0.7 acres approximately to create the 2.6 acre parkland. To do that though, one of the things that we had to look at was how do you provide access to the park to the surrounding residents? And one of the things that we looked at was how do you do that? You provide a public road from Goreway so that not only is a public road serving the future development, but it also provides access to the broader neighborhood to the park. The public road itself also interrelates with the property to the north, Calgore National Homes, and Alpha Stone property was not subject to any planning application to date, but that public road also provides opportunity for future road access and extension to the property to the south of National Homes so that all three properties have a public road access for its development. The tertiary plan area, just for your reference, is approximately 20 acres. So it's not a large tertiary plan area, but in terms of the complexity issues that I personally had to deal with, it's comparable to dealing with a 100-acre property. It was a very complicated process.
You almost finished, Colin?
Yes. Just the development concept. There are 151 townhouse units being proposed on National Homes. It's made up of 3 different product types. There are dual frontage units facing the Gore Road. These are units that have false frontage in the front and real frontage in the back. So they have 2 frontages, and they call it dual frontage. It provides eyes to the Goreway Drive. The public road access and the frontage, they're all freehold townhouses, street townhouses. And the third product is the common element townhouse units through a private condominium road. And it's a total of 151 units. It's a good mix. Calgore to the north is providing stacked townhouses, and I anticipate that when Alpha Stone comes forward, they'll be providing commercial as well as higher density as well as townhouse. So you get a very wide range of mix of housing being proposed in this little neighborhood. Just to give you a perspective of that park that we worked very diligently on, what you see there is an illustration of the future city park that has the tot lot with the playground and very, I guess, generous pathway system throughout the park system. My last few slides, I'm going to go very quickly. These are just sample product types, Madam Chair, that shows the type of development you're going to basically envision seeing, and National Homes is exploring different elevations for these products. Dual frontage units is the first 2. You have these street townhouses and common element townhouses, elevations, front view. And that's basically my presentation for tonight.
Good. You're only 4 minutes over. Actually, I have on the agenda that there is also an applicant presentation and staff presentation on this, even though it's not a statutory public meeting. Okay. Colin, thank you. There's 2 speakers on the board. Do we have questions of the delegation, or do you want to wait until after the 2 presentations? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'll invite, what about you, Councillor Spivey? Are you okay to wait until after the presentations? Okay. So the first presentation is Robert Levecchia? Or am I looking at the wrong one? Oh, he was the suitable replacement. Okay. The staff presentation is Adam Farr. Welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the public. My name is Adam Farr. I'm the manager of Development Review, and I'm delivering a presentation tonight on behalf of Kevin Freeman, who's the planner assigned to this file and will be dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. So Mr. Chung gave a brief overview of the nature of tonight's meeting. It's a non-statutory public meeting. Very quickly, with regard to the OMB appeal, this application was deemed complete in February 2017. The application was appealed in October for lack of a decision, which is a provision the Planning Act entitles applicants to file appeals for. No public meeting was ever held, so that's the crux of the meeting tonight, is to allow members of the public to come forward, speak to the item as they wish. As this application is within the OMB's jurisdiction, the public needs to be advised that notice will go out when it comes close to the time for an Ontario Municipal Board pre-hearing to be held. When something falls within the Ontario Municipal Board's jurisdiction, the matter is dealt with exclusively by the board. The applicant and the city will appear as parties, and residents may appear as parties or speak to the city about having their issues represented in within the city's purview. As Mr. Chung indicated, this is there's essentially an official plan amendment to amend a secondary plan and a zoning bylaw amendment to allow 151 three-story townhouses on the site. There's also a subdivision application, which, among other things, creates the public road and the public park, or contributes to the public park that was envisaged in the tertiary plan. And just for a little more detail, we're talking about 43-story street townhouses, 19 dual frontage townhouses, three-story townhouses, and 3 standard towns. There were some folks during the open house earlier that were concerned about the height of the development here. So very quickly then, I'm just going to review the planning framework, the results, and the need for the various amendments. Within the official plan, this property is in general accordance with the plan. The property is designated residential and open space. In addition, the property also has frontage along a secondary intensification corridor that contemplates a mixed-use development to achieve a floor space index of 1 over the entire intensification corridor, with buildings in the 2 to 8 story height range. Like I said, the proposal is in general conformity with the plan, but really the needed amendment here is to the secondary plan. The secondary plan contemplated intermediate office and highway and service commercial development in this area. In terms of the secondary plan, also the secondary plan contemplated the requirement for the tertiary plan exercise, and the tertiary plan, which I'll discuss in a minute, was adopted by the city. Development follows and is consistent with that. But the needed amendment results because the proposed development doesn't conform with permitted uses in the secondary plan, being intermediate office and highway service commercial. So as I mentioned, the tertiary plan indicated or provided guidance for the creation of this road and the park, and the subdivision plan implements that. And last, the other zoning bylaw amendment application that's required because the lands are currently designated a residential estate holding, and appropriate zoning bylaw address this townhouse development, the open space uses is required. So there's some preliminary issues, as Mr. Chung indicated. The city is working through the issues with the applicant. Some of those issues include the protection of natural features, open space, floodplain, drainage, enhancement of the old city right-of-way lanes that will remain once Goreway Drive is realigned, pedestrian connectivity through the site, the orientation, design of townhouse blocks, and the proposed private road network. The next steps on this file are to collect comments from the public, continue to develop the issues working with the applicant, address OMB-related procedures as required, and establish a position regarding the OMB proceedings. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fortini.
I got my answers. I'm just glad to move it. I'll move it.
Okay. Councillor Sprovieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we allowed to ask questions on this, or is this regarding to be like a public meeting?
I'm going to take it back, but we don't have this scenario very often, so.
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe committee can ask some questions. There may be an opportunity to request if there are any members of the public wish to come forward and speak to this item. So
Even though
perhaps.
it's not statutory.
It's not a statutory
Okay.
meeting. It's a public meeting, as the report sets out, that's just been requested to give the public an opportunity to comment on this
Okay.
application, which is currently before the board.
So Councillor Spovieri, do you want to speak now, or do you want me to see if there's any members of the public?
Yeah, you can ask the public.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to come forward and make comments? If I could ask you to state your name and address for the purpose of the public record. Maybe you just sign in afterwards. Yeah, just don't forget.
Good evening,
Thanks.
members of the committee. My name is Lauren Capilongo. I'm a land use planner with the firm Malone Given Parsons. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Alpastone Developments. As Mr. Chung mentioned in his presentation, Alpastone is the landowner to the immediate south of the National Home Site. And the solicitor for Alpastones actually did file correspondence there. It's Christopher Tanzola. In the interest of time and keeping the meeting moving along, I don't want to repeat the nature of the request, but our concerns really relate to making sure that the proposed public road network is in the right place, and it's and the appropriate planning and engineering concerns have been considered in that process. So our request is to sit down with city staff and the adjacent landowners to have a better understanding of the proposed road network, and we think we can come to an amicable resolution on that.
Through Madam Chair, yes, so planning staff is prepared to sit down with Ms. Capilongo and arrange a meeting with planning staff, engineering staff, and the representatives of the abutting owner to the south as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, Councillor Spovieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question to staff. This property, it is designated in the OP as office service commercial, I believe. Does this application require an amendment to the conversion bylaw, conversion requirement from employment to
MCR?
residential?
And so through Madam Chair, so with respect to a municipal comprehensive review, I understand that is the question. So in working with other staff here in the department, we've confirmed that there is no municipal comprehensive review that's required.
There's no? There's
no municipal comprehensive review and employment conversion associated with the application.
Required. Okay. So the other question I have, did staff have an opportunity to consider the proposal, and had staff had any views on this proposed use before it was sent to the OMB?
So through Madam Chair, so staff have had some discussions with the applicant about the application itself, but those were fairly preliminary at the time of the appeal having come through on the application. So that said, since the time of the appeal, staff have had further correspondence with the applicant and with the associated legal staff as well to discuss issues relating to the application.
Now, how does staff feel about this?
I'm not sure. I see legal reaching for their microphone
okay.
there.
There's no city position, so should there be a city position, a staff position when this goes to the OMB?
I'm going to let John Zingaro from legal
So
respond.
through you, Madam Chair, before we attended the board or do anything as it relates to the board or LPAT, we would always be coming back to council to see constructions, and that usually includes a report as to what position we have to take from our planning group and so on. So if this does move forward in that way, and of course it will, then you will be seeing a report at some point in camera.
Okay, and that's really what I really like to hear, because at that point we can express some views as to the appropriateness of this proposal, or whether members of council may have other ideas that we can share, and staff we can have a fulsome discussion about this proposal at that time. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Miles.
So we have a report before us of a non-statutory public meeting. So I would like to get some clarification because I know that staff have been working with the developer on this for quite a long period of time. And I guess I didn't believe that the application itself was at the preliminary stage. I thought that a lot of work and a lot of renditions of this plan has actually been vetted through the planning department to the point where the developer actually pretty well complied with everything that the municipality had asked for in regards to land, public road system, et cetera, So my understanding is that the applicant took the application to the OMB as a placeholder. And I'm wondering why we are not, as a municipality, just simply trying to move forward and come forward with a city recommendation so that we take this out of the hands of the OMB and we deal with it locally, which is normally what we want to do, rather than letting it proceed through to the OMB. John, the city solicitor's got a perplexed look on his face.
I think, given the status of this, we need to be very careful.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'm not quite sure what the question was. Perhaps the intent of this meeting and having the report before council or before planning committee today was, as you've heard from the developers or the applicant's consultant, there was a placeholder appeal filed. Having said that, it's they have provided the some information, in fact, saying that they would like to continue to work with staff, as applicants always do, even when matters have been appealed. And this was an opportunity to bring forward something to not only planning committee, but also members of the public, so that they could see what it is that is being proposed, and as well provide their comments. They will work with staff, as applicants always do, towards moving this forward. Once there's something that staff are prepared to recommend, or in the event that the matter proceeds to the board, then we'll be bringing forward a report with some additional details and a recommendation for you to consider.
So when the tertiary report was actually prepared, was it prepared in conjunction with the three landowners, or was it just prepared by National Homes?
Through you, Madam Chairman, we worked comprehensively with the landowner and National Homes and the landowner to the north as well, to come up with a comprehensive tertiary plan that they could use to guide their development application. So we agreed on a number of elements within the tertiary plan, such as the public road, the public park, its location, the treating of stormwater management. So those all set the stage for the processing of development application.
Okay, so all three applicants would have contributed to the tertiary plan then?
Through you, Madam Chairman, there was participation from two of the three landowners. We tried to engage Alpestone and to some degree, but it was essentially focused on the National Homes in Kilgore and providing the appropriate access to the south for Alpestone.
So do we have any idea of timing on this application?
So through you, Madam Chair, I can say that staff have had a regard for the technical studies that have been received to date. Staff will have further regard for those studies. Any comments that might be coming forward from the public on the matter as well, potentially. And staff will continue communications with the applicant, and will now, as we know and have been requested, we'll be sitting down with the landowner to the south as well. So we do anticipate, though, that given the fairly good progress that we've had on just speaking to issues with the owner, and us anticipating some ability to have some quick dialogue and a thorough, though, dialogue with the other property owner, that we'll be able to work with legal towards bringing a recommendation or report forward soon to council to consider.
Okay, so just so it's clear, I'm sorry, it's because this is a bit of an anomaly. So it is at the Ontario Municipal Board, but you will be bringing back a report to council for council to make a recommendation to in regards to the application, and that would then be able to go to the Ontario Municipal Board and hopefully settle it. But is there an opportunity for the property owner to withdraw that place setter at the Ontario Municipal Board? Does that make it easier, or for us to move this application forward?
So through you, Madam Chair, of course, we would always welcome applicants that have filed appeals, have them withdraw their appeals. The likelihood of that happening, I think, is low. But as I mentioned earlier, the applicants, the purpose of tonight's meeting was really so that the applicant could work with us and invite members of the community and provide comments. So obviously they're showing a willingness to move forward with a process that looks like our normal process, while at the same time protecting their appeal rights because of the changes to the provincial legislation. So we will continue. I think you've heard from our planning staff. We'll continue to work with them as we typically do. If we get to a point where there's something that can be recommended to council, then certainly we will come back and seek instructions with a fulsome report to allow us to settle this. Of course, it's at the board, and so the board would have jurisdiction in terms of the approval. But it certainly seems like the parties are intent on working together to find a resolution.
Okay, I guess my other concern is there's a lot of other things happening on Goreway at the present time. The municipality is looking at the road configuration. We do have a lot of residents living along that road now with no appropriate sidewalks or ways for them to safely walk on the roads to get to public transit, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's the sooner we can sort of move these three applications forward and get the infrastructure in there for many, many different reasons, I think the better. So that's, I know I've been having conversations with property owners to the north of these properties, and they have residents that use public transit, and it's a real issue with that road. But I know we are going to be widening it. It's in the capital program. I don't know if it's this year or next year, but anyway, it'd be nice if it all came together at once. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sprovier, you're back on the board.
Yes, I am. Just a final question. Will there be a public meeting where the residents to the north will be invited to come in and give us their comments for this in this process?
I believe this was circulated as if it was part of the public meeting, but
I don't believe the residents have been notified to the north.
So through you, Madam Chair. So yes, the other item being that the lands immediately to the north of this site were one of the public meeting items that were on for tonight's agenda. And so
they were what? Sorry.
So the lands to the north were one of the public meeting items on tonight's agenda, referred to as the Calgore application. And so notice.
No, I'm talking about the Dayspring community just up the road. There's quite a large community there. Well, it's directly, well, I don't know how many meters, but a couple hundred meters maybe. But I think it's important that those people there be a meeting to get the people, because this will certainly impact, or it's part of that community, so they should have they should be notified and be advised. Because I know that when I represented the area, there was a very vocal population there when this third phase of Dayspring was developed. There was a lot of participation and a lot of people And I know a lot of those people who live there, and I'm sure they would like to know and have some comments on this proposed development. So if they were not notified, I think it's proper that they should be notified, and we should hold a proper public meeting to get the comments from that community.
Staff want to comment?
Yeah, so I can say through you, Madam Chair, that notice has gone out just as per city's policy and planning act requirements, and as committee members know, planning staff does double the planning act requirements with respect to notice being provided for mailings, and so we have utilized, as always, a 240-meter radius from the subject sites, and so that was provided both from this site, National Homes, and the one to the north for Calgore. I can't confirm right now for committee members as to the extent to which the 240 meters gets us, but I can follow up with you thereafter.
Through the chair, I think this is really important that and if, I know 240 meters is it's to the north. All you have is the leisure world, and then you have there's an open field, which probably there's nothing in that field, and maybe it would require 300 meters or 400 meters to actually catch those people, and I feel that it's crucial that we hold, and we have to hold another. If we have to hold another public meeting, I would refer this item to another public meeting to make sure that those residents are notified properly.
So what I can offer as well through Madam Chair is that I'm just conferring with Mr. Adam Farr here. He's identified that some individuals from the Dayspring community were present tonight. I can't confirm as to the extent of the Dayspring community the Dayspring community itself is quite a large area running all the way up through to the intersection of Yorkland Boulevard with Gorway Drive. I can't confirm which individuals from which apartment buildings and such were notified, but notice has gone out to some of those residents, and we have heard from some of the residents tonight.
I didn't want to,
informal session.
Ms. Parsons, I didn't want to, maybe I have a conflict, but I do own a unit in that third phase, and I did not receive a notification. And I don't believe anybody else there did either, because I know a lot of the people who live there, and I know I'm sure they would have called me if they had received a notice. So I didn't receive a notice, and I have a unit in that development. So I would ask, Madam Chair, that we redo the public meeting, refer this to another public meeting, and notify the whole Dayspring community, because I'm sure there'll be lots of people who will have something to say about this proposal. Okay, so
you're moving a deferral of this
to another public meeting. Yeah.
Councillor Fortini on the deferral?
Well, I just want to ask a question for clarification. Usually referral?
I see it as a deferral.
It's a deferral. Well,
Madam Chair, if a deferral motion is placed to postpone it to a future meeting of this committee, that is not debatable, and we must take a vote immediately. The next meeting of the evening meeting of the Planning Committee is scheduled for Monday, May 14th.
So can we refer it to that next public meeting?
Through you, Madam Chair, the Council's procedural rules do not allow for a referral back to oneself. A referral is to a superior body, a subordinate body, or back to staff for further consideration. A deferral is a postponement that has a higher...
So can we, I'm sure, will this report go to the planning meeting, our next planning meeting? Or some planning meeting in the future?
Well, the minutes of tonight's meeting will come to council next week, but that's at which point anybody could come and speak to it.
So can I refer this then to the next planning meeting, and in the meantime, notify the residents of Dayspring, the whole community there, of this, that it's going to be on a future planning meeting?
The next planning meeting is an afternoon meeting. The next evening meeting is not until May the 14th.
Well,
for
next,
the public?
next planning, most of the people there are retirees, so I'm sure that they could come during the day. Probably it's better for them to come during the day, not community.
So take advice from the clerk on this.
First to start, Madam Chair, the councillor spoke and then he moved deferral under
No,
council's procedural
I
rules.
said referral to somewhere else.
Then
And I'm
as-
I'm proposing it to the next planning meeting.
Then under council's procedural rules, it is not a referral, it's a deferral. And a deferral cannot be moved after a member has spoken because it's unfair to the other members because there is no debate.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, if it's a deferral, you said that if you defer it to similar to a public meeting as a deferral, but if we can refer it to another setting, which would be a planning meeting, it should be a referral to the planning meeting.
Through you, Madam Chair, my advice to committee is a referral motion under council's procedural rules is to refer to a subordinate body, not planning committee, a subordinate body, a superior body, or back to staff. The intent, what I understand of what Councillor Sprovieri is moving, is to postpone or defer this to another meeting of the planning committee, to have a public meeting. That is properly placed as a deferral motion if placed properly. Unfortunately, Councillor Sprovieri spoke to the item and then moved deferral, so that's not a proper motion at this point in time. That's my advice, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, I think it's really important to get that community to come in and comment on this.
Okay, well, Councillor Sprovieri, you've heard the clerk, it's not a proper motion. I have Councillor Fortini on the board.
So can I, when it goes to council, then can I refer it back to?
If you don't speak to it.
I can do it back at the council. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Fortini.
Well, I guess Councilor Spirit clarified, if the staff did their job, so I don't see why we have to bring it to another meeting. So they did say they brought it to 240 meters. It was all fields up.
Okay. Councillor Miles.
Well, I'm perfectly satisfied as the area councillor, like Councillor Fortini, that staff did the appropriate circulation, and let's move on with it. We don't need further delays on this.
Councillor Gibson.
Well, Councillor
Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Miles. There won't be debate across the table. Councillor Gibson?
I was just going to say, it's extremely important that when we have rules in place that we stick to them. And every time somebody feels like we need to go farther to increase to another area is abusing those rules. And with all due respect, Councillor Sprovieri, maybe you did, maybe you didn't get it. But I think you said it, you may have a conflict here.
I'm not making money out of this.
Well, you don't necessarily have to make money to have a conflict, but you know, mail is mail. Sometimes we have people, Councillor Sprovieri, please, I mean, I didn't say one word when you were speaking. I didn't interrupt you at all.
Councillor Sprovieri.
You're the one that said it, not me.
Councillor Sprovieri, please.
But, you know, we have rules and we go far and beyond what we have to in public meetings. And we can't every time somebody feels like we gotta go farther, otherwise, but
Councillor Sprovieri.
you spoke for like 15 minutes and now every time one of us opens our mouth, you cut us off, Councillor Sprovieri. Please be respectful for the rest of us, as we are to you.
Councillor Palashi.
Madam Chair, so we have an applicant that has taken us to the OMB for a non-decision. We have staff that have been working with the applicant through the process, trying to understand, and have actually written a report, not a recommendation report, but a report. Why can we not close the gap and have a report come with the understanding that the applicant withdraw the appeal? That's just, I don't expect an answer to that question. I'm throwing it out there, but I also am a little bit uncomfortable with the way this has all been going and the fact that we haven't even gone in camera to discuss the matter. Anytime an application comes before us that is at the OMB, we always have some kind of in-camera discussion with legal. And I'm not sure why this is different. It brings a lot of clarity to this council when we've had the opportunity to go in camera and hear from legal. And I don't think this would have gone that far as it has come now without that.
I'm gonna let staff respond, but we've kind of covered various aspects of this application when the intent of tonight was simply to have the statutory public meeting for comments. There's been a lot of questions that are getting risky, in my opinion. I've been watching for John to reach for the legal to reach for his microphone, but it was not the intent that there would be direction on this file this evening, which is why there was not an in-camera portion of this. It was not intended to be part of it this evening.
Madam Chair, with respect, I would like to hear from legal on that matter with my question.
So through you, Madam Chair, I don't have carriage of the board matter, but I will speak to some of the questions that you've had, and as well, there were some issues relating to the, just for clarification purposes, through you, Madam Chair, with regards to notices and so on. So understanding that this is not a statutory public meeting, you've only got a statutory public meeting when council retains jurisdiction over the matter, and that's not the case here. This is at the board. Typically, I will say, however, when we send out notices, and my understanding is, and staff have spoken to this, when we send notices out, when you send a notice out to a condominium corporation, you don't actually send notices out if you've got 100 units in a condominium corporation, and this is just general information. You don't send notices out to each individual unit owner. You send the notice out to the condominium corporation itself, who then distributes that information off to each of the individual owners. Because otherwise it would become totally unwieldy from the municipal side in terms of providing notices when you've got these larger buildings. In terms of legal advice and so on, as it relates to this, and Chair Moore, you're correct in that I believe the intention was to provide some general information to the public in terms of what the application is, not to provide any sort of confidential information or information that would jeopardize the position of the city moving forward at the board if it ever went finally to the board. This was intended as information, an information, that's exactly what it's called, it's an information report, but for the purposes of providing information, and it was not intended that there would be any sort of discussion. It was intended to put that information out there, allow members of the public to come in and speak to it, and that would then allow the applicant and city staff to use that information that had been gathered through the meeting as part of their review process and so on, with the end result being hopefully a report that would have come to council in camera. Should council wish, we can still go in camera and we can discuss this a little bit further in terms of legal advice that would be provided to council. Chair Moore, you're correct in that the minute we start going off in terms of this report, and this is somewhat is fairly unusual, I've never seen this before, but we're kind of in unusual times, and I will say that, okay, and that's because we've got all these protective appeals, as committee's well aware, because of the changes to the provincial legislation, which has put a lot of applicants in a position where they had to choose to go ahead and appeal applications for non-decisions, when in reality they wanted to continue to work with staff towards finding some sort of resolution. So they're kind of put between a rock and a hard place, and what that also does is it puts staff between a rock and a hard place in terms of the reporting back. So what I can offer is, if committee has questions from a legal perspective in terms of what this is doing to us, what sort of position might we have, what sort of recourse or what would be the impact of going to the board and so on, we can certainly have that discussion in camera. We would not have that discussion in open session. But if council is, as was the intent, I think, initially, is prepared to just receive the information report, then really there's nothing more that needs to be said, and we'll continue to work with the applicant, staff will, and eventually a report will come in camera to seek direction from council.
Okay, I've heard support from the area councillors, so I'm going to assume you're prepared to move the report, and if there is a desire to have an in-camera discussion, then I'd like to suggest that could take place at council when the minutes come back, which is next week. So if there's
Chair,
still a desire to have that conversation,
Do you need somebody to move that staff recommendation or request?
if you believe at this point that you need an in-camera update or briefing on this file, then I would suggest that it would be an appropriate motion, unless the clerk tells me it's not, that an in-camera item be added to the April 16th, what's the date next week? 18th?
And Madam Chair,
April 16th council meeting, when the minutes come back to council.
If it's, and it's up to you, Madam Chair, and to you, through you to you, I'm happy to move that at committee if it makes it a little bit more easier, or maybe the area councilors. I think there's a little bit of an appetite for that, but I'm happy to add it to committee then, rather than putting a
So when the
formal
minutes
motion
come
on.
back, you'll wait until, and ask for it
I'll
at
add it
that
at
point.
the agenda on
Okay.
at council.
So the recommendation has been moved by Councilor Fortini. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And item 13, Councilor Miles, you move correspondence 13.3 related to this report. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. We'll move back to 7.1, Mr. Clerk. All righty. And item 13.4, which is a correspondence from Richard Domes. Are there any questions on this report? Councilor Pelleggi, are you on for this?
I'm not.
Okay. Seeing none, Councilor Fortini will move the report. All those in favor? That's carried. Item 7.2. Sorry, 7.3. Is that the next one? 7.2. And Councilor Fortini's moved that as well. All in favor? That's carried. You have a question on already? 7.2.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Chair, sorry. The question I have on, just a clarification question. On page 722, first of all, I'd like to say that the development proposal, I think is going to look really great for that area. I think it fits very well, especially the mid-rise and the office component right at the corner there. I think it looks great, and so I'm very glad to see that as a former councillor for the area. The question I have in particular on page 722 on point 4.5, it states that the implementing zoning bylaw shall contain a holding provision to ensure the building permits for the residential uses not fronting the Gore Road or Focal Road do not precede the issuance of the first building permit within the office do not precede the issuance of the first building permit within the office designation. Now, so generally speaking, what this means is that the building permits for the low density or the medium density will not be issued until the office components are built. So that's what. So the applicants here, that's what I'd like to see. But is that a commitment that's going to happen? Basically, that's the question I have, that the applicants have committed to this, that we're not just putting this here and the applicants are going to come back later and say, well, we can't really we can't really achieve what you've done, and we would like to have an amendment to remove the holding zone, so because we don't have any office users that are really interested in this site, or, you know, come up with some kind of, and then come back later trying to get that relief from this holding. And this is what concerns me, that whether, because I know, the reason I asked that through the chair is because just across the road, the Green Park people have an office site. They have a sign. It says, I believe it says that occupation, occupancy in 2011. And the sign's still there, but no building is there. So obviously, they're probably having a hard time getting interest in the office component. So what kind of, and I know that only the council can only lift the holding zone to make sure that, and that's a safety net there, but I was hoping we get some assurance that from the applicant that they do have office users already interested in the site, or maybe they'll move their own head office on that corner from come in for a bond and bring it to Brampton. So is there a chance to get some kind of a comment from the applicant here, Madam Chair?
No, it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate?
No, it isn't.
Do they have a consultant here, a planner consulting?
No, maybe you want to set up coffee with them. Have a chit chat.
Well, you know, I don't know what to expect, but anyway, that's only my comments on this. But otherwise, the concept is great, and really look forward to this being done.
Great,
thank you.
It was moved by Councillor Fortini as the new area councillor. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll move now to item, 8.1 is in consent. There's no referred matters. I think we've moved and received all the correspondence items. Are there any councillor question period? Seeing none. Public question period. Is any member from the public in attendance who wishes to come forward and ask a question of clarification on any report that was dealt with this evening? Seeing none. Those three words we like to hear most. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Miles, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.